Today on Exploring Scotland's History, we're heading back out to Inishail. Our last visit was fraught with issues with midges and ticks and large growing ferns, so this time hopefully it won't be as bad. We had a look at the history of the island, and today we're going to have a look at the people who were interred there. It's quite interesting to see what we can uncover with these old graveyards with a wee bit of research. This is what I find. So that's us back on the island. I'm going to take a minute or two to get my land legs, because that was quite an interesting paddle over. So yes, we're up in the graveyard now, and we really can see the headstones a whole lot clearer than we did last summer. The bracken was higher than me, but we'll have a look at some of the interesting ones here. I couldn't find a whole lot on this individual, but the history of Baird is interesting. It's originally derived from the Scottish word for poet, bard. The Baird motto is the Lord made, and that was granted to them by William the Lion, King of Scots, according to legend. It also explains the significance of the boar, as it is said that a member of the Baird clan killed a boar with a single arrow when it approached the king, alarming him somewhat. Quite hard to make out, but this massive slab is a MacArthur slab. There are many MacArthur graves on Loch, some on 𝕳𝖎𝖑𝖆𝖎𝖏 as well, which we have visited. Clan Arthur is one of the oldest in Argyll. Their ducas was around Loch. Their chief held 𝕳𝖎𝖘𝖑, which means of the shoreland. They were staunch supporters of Robert the Bruce and were granted the forfeited McDougall lands. It should not be confused with MacArthur Campbells, a branch of Clan Campbell and not an independent clan. The McDougalls resented the MacArthurs, and Lady Mary McGregor writes that the MacArthurs were persecuted to the point that they had to turn to the Campbells for protection. It does explain also how they appear to have held the land for only a short time. Controversy surrounding the MacArthurs reappeared in 1428, when John or Ian MacArthur was one of 3 men executed by James I at his parliament in Inverness. I'll put a video link at the end to our previous visit here, and we can discuss the MacArthurs in more detail. Sinclairs are also buried over Loch, though they are a relatively new family to move into the area. Old records suggest that the Sinclairs moved to the area of 𝕵𝖭𝒫 and Kilcrennan at the turn of the 19th century, and principally were joiners by trade. The Reverend Donald Sinclair had passed away after a weakening illness. And right in the corner of the graveyard, a simple cross with Charlie 1937 to 2009, and what I presume is his favourite tipple. Rest in peace. Again, Charles Stirling is someone who very little information seems to be available on at the moment anyway. But we can look at things on his headstone and ascertain perhaps what was going on. His headstone does say 𝕵𝖓𝖎 North in South Africa. It was a government grabbed land at the time, and in Africa there was ongoing various African wars, including the Second Boer War. So clearly that's why Mr. Stirling was out there, and we can only presume, since he died at such a young age, he maybe died in one of these battles for supremacy over the locals. There are many graves of fellows and their relatives on the island. The Fellows took control of the Claddock estate on Loch when it was passed by succession from the Campbells of Malmsey, who had originally bought the land in 1775. They managed the estate until 2001 when it was sold. The Fellows are noted as being prolific in Highland cattle, winning many competitions and even exporting medal winners to the States. The family did much also to promote the black-faced sheep as a breed. When David Lyon Fellows passed away in 2016, the Claddock farming community really mourned his loss. This Campbell headstone has a very interesting chap on it, D.H. Elles. He was a commanding officer in the 823 Naval Air Squadron during the Second World War. The Swordfish torpedo spotter operated in the Indian Ocean and Red Sea from HMS Glorious in search of enemy shipping right up to March 1940. This is the grave of the 11th Duke of Argyll, Ian Douglas Campbell. He was born in Paris and the son of Douglas Walter Campbell. The 11th Duke was a busy man. He was married a total of 4 times. Unfortunately, it was his 3rd marriage that caused waves and was highly publicised. His 3rd wife was Margaret Wigham, and she was the mother of the Duchess of Rutland from one of her other marriages. She was a glittering socialite and had a sexual appetite to match. Her affairs were well recorded by the old-fashioned paparazzi of the time. While still with the Duke, she had affairs with Douglas Fairbanks Jr. and also Duncan Sandys, who was apparently the Minister of Defence at the time. The Duke eventually did have enough and divorce proceedings were put in place. In court, unfortunately, photographs of her philandering and pleasuring other men came to light, but obviously the divorce was settled and he got shot over. His last marriage was to the granddaughter of a New York banker, and that marriage lasted just over 10 years until his death in his 70th year. While most of the Dukes of Argyll are buried in the Kilmun burial ground, a couple have chosen to come here on the ancient burial ground of Inishail, and it's all the better for it. It's a stunning island. So how did the Campbells end up in this area? The Campbells were descendants of 𝕾𝖈𝖍𝖘, who bought a lot of lands around Loch over 900 years ago. From as early as the 13th century, it was the Campbells of Loch who held the title the Chief of Clan Campbell. In 1291, Sir Colin Campbell was one of the names put in the hat for the Crown of Scotland. Sir Duncan Campbell of Loch became Lord of Parliament as Lord Campbell under James I in 1445. His son Colin, the 2nd Lord Campbell, was created an Earl in 1457. We have one boy appears to be caged off. His cage isn't locked, so we'll go in and have a look. Oh my. And this is the 12th Duke of Argyll. This is the grave slab of the 12th Duke of Argyll, who passed away in, as you can see, 2001. He's the only one caged off on this island. I think maybe he was having an issue with some of the rest of the guys, but we'll tell you about him now. So the 12th Duke of Argyll was born in 1937. And he was brought up in Portugal and France. He did serve his military career and rose to captain in the Argyll and Sutherland Highlanders. After his military career, he worked for Rank Xerox, the export part of it, and would have spent quite a lot of time in and out behind the Iron Curtain. He took over the running of the dukedom in 1968 from his father. This is the grave of Charles James McCallum. Charles's brother was Sir Duncan McCallum. He was elected an MP for Argyllshire in 1940, where he remained until his death in 1958, a few months before his brother. Sir Duncan perhaps is better known for his book China to Chelsea, where he maps out his epic 1927 through 1928 car journey of 15,200 miles driven in a Buick. It even mentions them arriving in Constantinople to find where they had planned to stay had literally just been reduced to rubble by an earthquake. Their father was an interesting chap too. Charles and Duncan were two of the 7 children of Colin Whitten McCallum, known by his stage name Charles Coburn. He was a successful music hall singer and comedian, best known for 2 songs, Two Lovely Black Eyes and The Man Who Broke the Bank at Monte Carlo, which even inspired a romantic comedy of the same name in 1935. This is the old parish church at Inishail on this beautiful island. It is worth pointing out that services were conducted regularly on the island until 1736, when there was a new church built in 𝕵𝖃. The medieval church on Inishail is described as ruinous even in the late 18th century. There is an early Christian decorated cross which formerly stood in the graveyard and has been put inside the church. The medieval decorated stone slabs found in this burial ground are really beyond compare. In the remains of the old chapel, this actually looks like it might have been a tomb at some stage. This is one of the most interesting ones actually over here, and centrally we have a crucifix, and to the left we have a figure with a chalice, and further left we have 2 knights in armour. The right is quite interesting though. To the right of the crucifix we have a figure holding a cup for the blood draining from Christ's wounds. We also have another 2 figures supporting a crown and a shield with a berlin underneath. This is also a very interesting one because it shows the MacDonald's straight sword on what was primarily Campbell country. That must have gone down well. Some of these stunning headstones also have really intricate lattice work in them. Again, we have the armed knight, and below the hunting scene and the various weaves. Obviously the leaves were to show life. You can just make out the weathered workings of an absolutely stunning Celtic cross. But to the left, or overscribed on the cross, it's almost like a pate that would maybe indicate a Knights Templar. Obviously a lot of these headstones are weathered because we are on an island in the middle of a loch, but we do have another straight sword. At the top of the straight sword, that does look like an axe, and it looks like an Irish axe, but who knows. Another place we failed to film the last time we had come in here because of the bracken was the possible remains of a ruined settlement on the other side of the island. So since we're not bracken bound, we're going to go and find it. And here it is, the remains of this settlement and get in closer. So this is obviously some more of the remains. There's various bits and pieces of earthworks that look rectangular in shape. There's probably quite a settlement here at some stage. I'm wondering how recently this was abandoned, because there's wrought iron fencing. Abandoned or cleared? That is the question. This is a tremendous length. Clearly a longhouse, and separated into two dwellings, or possibly a dwelling and a byre. The West Coast Archaeology Service lists that the remains we see today may have been a small township. On the Argyllshire 1874 OS map, there are 5 unroofed buildings, an unroofed structure and an enclosure depicted on their first edition. By 1976, nothing is shown. Obviously we can see there are still remains. It must have been quite thriving and quite beautiful to have lived there. Another sign, proof of life here. That is definitely a coppice tree. In order to get more wood off it, to fuel the homestead. I think we just got here at the right time. That's the crooks of the bracken starting to come back up again. I will put up some related video links at the end of this one. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and share to help grow the channel. There are links below to my other social media, including the coffee page link, which I am grateful for all of you who donate. Until next time, thanks for watching.